plein air painting. It's basically where you go out into nature, you see something you love, and you paint it straight on the spot with all your beautiful painting stuff. What I would love to do is combine my love of painting with my love of video games, and then combine this idea of like video game photography into that by painting what I'm seeing in video games. I like to call it plein air game painting, Pleinting. Regardless of bad nomenclature, join me in Mario's Sunshine to find the perfect place to paint. Allow me to take you to the top of scenic Noki Bay, where we find a small yet functional space featuring 2 palm trees, a bunch of flowers, and a little bit of water, and sometimes occupied by a giant fucking octopus. In its off time, it functions solely as being pretty, and that's why I want to paint it today. One thing you gotta know about drawing is that it's bullshit, it takes a lot of time, and it's all about feeling it out. Is that great advice? Probably not. It works for me though. So we gotta start off with a sketch, because otherwise what are we gonna do? So just a classic rule of thirds here, where I've separated the original image up, and now I'm sort of matching where my sketch is with what's in the actual image. So we got a volcano, we got a tree, we got the grass, and then we've also got the watery bit. And once we get through that, then we can move on to more fun things, like rubbing it all out. Completely. I didn't actually mean to do this, but I accidentally did, in fact, rub everything out. Part of the journey. I did this because I needed to make sure that the pencil marks wouldn't show through the paint. So I lightly rubbed them out. Unfortunately, I heavily rubbed them out, and now we are here. This brings us to the next stage, which I like to call underpainting, because it's called that. I'm just getting out my paints. These are Acrylic Gouache. I'll talk about them more in a little bit. So right here, I'm wetting the paper down just so it can accept the paint a bit better, it spreads nicer, and it just lies a bit flatter, and it doesn't just go onto one big cauliflower. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that I'm using the highest grade of material, a playing card, as a palette, because I lost mine, and then I found it. How good. But what I've done is I've just wet down the paper, and now I'm going over it with a wash of colour to prevent any show-through of white paper, because that won't look great. Case in point, how well the colours are sort of melding together is exactly what I wanted to achieve with this wet on wet application. There you go, that's what that means, wet on wet. Wet paint on wet paper, so good. And I'm also coming in and I'm taking off some of the paint with a damp brush that can absorb the pigment straight off the page. And that's just because I didn't leave that white space, and now I need that white space to show depth. All right, straight in. Let's do this thing. We're painting now. Sorry, there's dust in the palette because I haven't washed it. So we're going in with the first layer of actual detail. As you can see, I don't have to do a lot of work because I did all that underpainting, which kind of gave it that base layer, and it's nice to work on. So now the details are actually popping off. So I'm using acrylic gouache here, but I'm painting like a watercolorist. Whoa, amazing. Gouache is like a weird paint that acts like watercolor but has the pigmentation of acrylic paint. And acrylic gouache is basically like acrylic paint that works like watercolors. I know. Incredible. But what it's doing here that's so magical is I'm painting over layers that only dried a few hours ago, and they're not reactivating, and they're not creating horrible muddy colors. So this volcano here caused me some serious issues, and you may be seeing why. It isn't necessarily reactivating underneath, but it is interacting poorly because I did it with a yellow base rather than a red base or even a gray or white base. You will see later that I try and fix it by adding in some more grey tones to try and create more of a stony texture, and I think that kind of pulled it back. It does end up very crisp though. Jumping into the water because the volcano is causing me issues, I tried to create this depth effect with the tiling. I'm gonna lift it with paper towel. I could sit here and pretend that's a technical thing. It probably is a technical thing, but for me it was just because I couldn't get the perspective right. And it kind of looks like reflections now. So win-win. The paper towel is drier than the paint, and it goes straight into the paper towel off the paper, which is much damper. Really accentuate those white spaces I created with the paper towel, I'm coming in with some thick and buttery gouache. I'm using it in its thickest form here, known as butter, which is just not watered down, to create more reflections. And I'll just keep layering this throughout the painting until it looks absolutely awesome, and also until I ruin it a little bit. But then I fix it, so don't worry. So I've got a thicker brush again, and I'm just going to be layering the green on here to create like a grassy kind of mossy texture for this back wall. I don't really know if it's meant to be stone or grass or just amorphous bluey green hills, but I kind of went down that path. I think that's the fun thing about painting this low poly stuff. It's more about what you think you're seeing rather than what you're actually seeing. Kind of like a book in that sense. It's very much about what you're thinking and seeing and knowing. interpretation as opposed to having the whole thing spelled out for you, which I quite like. It means that I can think and feel and know and create cool paintings. It's fun. Taking that same square brush, but I'm using it more in the how it's meant to be used as like an angular brush to try and create some craggly rocky texture. Tried to add blue, tried to add make it purpler to try and avoid using black. Would just make it look muddy and gross. Yeah, it's getting there. We'll keep revisiting the volcano as the layers of it dry. So I've gone away and I've come back. I've let a lot of that work dry now, which will allow me to work more on it and be a bit more aggressive with the detail work I'm doing, be thicker. Because whilst I am still using an acrylic gouache, which is not very activatable, it's still important to let the layers dry so you don't rip the paper up and cause it to pill and just look gross. Best part, guys, best part. We get to paint that tree. I am doing this the wrong way around if you are painting like a watercolorist. Watercolorists paint from lightest to darkest, so you're building shading. What I'm doing here is going all in on the darkest color possible, so the shaded parts of the leaves, and then what I'm gonna do is work forward to the lighter colors. This is what I'm saying, acrylic gouache, I can layer a dark color and still manage to get a yellow to look good on top of it. Of course, many layers, many drying sessions later, but this palm tree is gonna look hot to trot. And a little while later, we're going to go in with some detail work. I've just added some rings to the tree to make it look more like a palm tree. Some shading to make it look more 3D, just sort of make it feel a bit more grounded in the space. The light color going over the dark. I'm going to keep building that until it's just so pigmented and strong. As you can see, I've done the green in the background, but I thought it was more interesting to watch the tree, honestly. Okay. You need to know that the reason I'm doing this is because it was in the image and I wanted to be a completionist. Oh, just brutal. I'm using that. Oh, it's so bad. Forget the volcano. So what I'm trying to do now is remove paint, wet paint from semi-wet paint. Because I'm stupid and I went wet on wet, which means I'm damaging both layers. But you know what that means? We fix it by covering it in white paint. When in doubt, cover it up. Make it look shiny. It's fine. So now I have the tiniest, littlest, bittlest brush. And I'm putting in tiny blades of grass to try and give the ground some texture and give it some interest. And what you'll actually see me doing is dabbing that off just to soften the lines a little bit because they're going on really strong, but they might not need to be that strong depending on where they are on the ground. Foreground will probably be darker, but then the background, I need it to be much, much softer. And why is that? Well, the eye sees things farther away a little bit softer and a little bit more muted. That's literally it. You know what's so great about making a video for the first time about painting stuff? You get to find your old stuff. This is a palette my friend gave me when I moved away from Melbourne. It is so cute. So here I'm just loading the palette up so I can start mixing paint to make the flowers. I truly love painting flowers. I think they add such a fun detail to this one. It's kind of the reason I thought this part of Noki Bay was so cute, because of the little flowers, which are not anywhere else in the level as far as I'm aware, except on these grassy patches up high. I think there's one other area they might be, but here I am painting the leaves. So I'm drawing the paint from the palette, but I'm actually wetting the brush frequently and daubing the moisture off, so I can get lots of color without too much bleeding of that color. Color will immediately bleed into the paper if there's too much water, because the water is straight into the paper. It's very, very absorbent, nice paper that just wants moisture so badly. So if I can try and get a high concentration of color onto that brush and get that concentrated color to go into the paper, then I end up with more consistent color overall for all the leaves involved. And if I keep it consistent across all of them, the shading I did in the previous layers, you'll see here underneath the tree, some of the leaves are darker because there's a darker base. And some of the leaves are lighter because there's a lighter base. So now I'm going in with a darker layer, give it a bit more depth around the edges of the leaves so they look a bit more 3D and a bit less flat. And here I've just picked up some yellow and I'm going to give it some more dimension by giving it some highlights. I'm not going in with white because I want this to be a more depthful, raising color. I don't know the word for it, but yellow is the partner, the lighter partner of green. Oh, I suppose it would be because when you mix in green, yellow and blue go together. Bada bing, bada boom. One makes it lighter, one makes it darker. Yellow is the lighter, blue is the darker. There you go. Oh my God, I figured it out. Go me. And to follow on from that, I'm also applying that theory to the tree to make it nice and poppy. Not like a poppy, like a palm tree. But it makes it look like it's popping out of the page, just giving it depth. I should also say, the brush I'm using at the moment is a square-tipped brush. I don't know if this is what it's intended for. I tried using my florals brush. I have one. I got given one as a gift. I have another one. But the blending thing is really hard to use, so I just prefer this harsher-edged brush to do these detailed parts, because I got the sharp bit on the corner, and I got the flat bit for long lines to keep them straight, and, you know, then it's just overall a thicker brush to deliver more paint, more water, etc. That doesn't mean that I don't use a small brush. You've seen me use one. They're much simpler for your detail work, but here I am tending to use my favorite, which is a square tip. That's probably controversial. I don't know. Case in point, I have swapped to a smaller brush to do the initial layers of the flowers. Let's just get right in there. And I'll edit that. What I'm doing here is creating the base in a pink, and it didn't work. I didn't like it. And then I'm creating the base in a white, because that looks way better, and that's much easier to blend. As I said, I tried to use my floral brush. Looked like not doing it again. Awful. It would probably work better for a larger piece to do it that way, but here I'm doing it with the smallest brush I have, which I will check what size it is. It is my 2/0. I also have a 000 that I can use. And then the square-tipped one is an 8, if they're consistent across brands, because I don't know if they are. You'll also see me quickly dabbing away moisture, once again, just to make the pigment stronger. So we're here highlighting the flowers, adding some deeper magenta as well to add some depth. And I'm just going in further with the water to add some shine. I was thinking about this later, and I should have put sparkles on the water purely for the vibes. I haven't, and I didn't. Also, this is the saving grace for that big red patch. I'm gonna make it look so not there that it doesn't even matter that I put it there. And that's the beauty of gouache, baby. I'm not reactivating the red, although you can see that I slightly reactivated that red because it wasn't dry, and I would like you to know that that is not because of the product, that was because of the user. I'm adding white around the edges to create even more shine and more depth. It kind of makes it look a bit foamy, but here I don't think it matters too much because it's creating such a heavy contrast between the grass and the water that it just makes it look more and more like an edge. And now that the flowers have dried a bit more, we're going in with more highlights on those to make them really look like tiny little blooms. It's shine time in Pleinting town. Yes, I'm going to use the phrase, and I'm going to win. This is just to add more detail and depth, add a little bit more directionality to the light. I haven't really thought about the light up until like now. It's really just to add texture, honestly, and I'm still dabbing at it with my finger just to make it like blended. Once again, it's probably a technique. I don't know if it's called anything, but it's just how I manage my color because I'm pretty heavy-handed. Oh, and here we're putting in the tiny little red flowers. I just really wanted the magenta flowers in there. They're not in the real thing. They're not there, but they look so cute and they add another layer of depth alongside the grass. Sometimes you just have to follow your heart when it comes to some of these things. And here, this is me following my heart. And I know for a fact that more little lines and dots on that little flat plain area will just make it look so much realer. Ooh, okay, peely time. The tape came off nice. It's just masking tape. I'm really happy with this one. The lines came out super crisp on the edges, which is so great. I feel like this is exactly the kind of painting I wanted to do for the first one of these. I've done a couple in the past just for fun, and now I want to share it more with people because I feel like it's a fun thing for people to enjoy and look at. YouTube is hopefully a great medium for it. I mean, like, hopefully. Surely. I reckon it is. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to chuck me all the things you need to chuck me, like a like, that would be nice. Maybe a sub, you don't have to. It's like so chill, don't even worry about it. Like, I don't mind, but I do. But anyway, links in description, TikTok, Insta. I've been streaming less lately, but I can do it again. And if you ever want to support, you can buy me a coffee. Thanks so much, guys. This has been Dem.